In this video, we will discuss the Celtic software and provide an overview of the forms required for some of the most common motor carrier transactions. Now, we will discuss Celtic, which is the software used to process all motor carrier transactions. While you can visit an SCDMV branch office that does motor carrier business in person, or even mail in your paperwork when making changes for your account, a great resource at your disposal is the MCS trucking portal, which can be accessed through the SCDMV website. In order to get access to the portal, you need to submit the Form MC-26, which allows us to grant you access to Celtic and process your own transactions without having to wait in line at the DMV in person. Some things you can do in the online MCS trucking portal include running inquiries that will give you all kinds of information about your account, renewing your registration and fuel tax licenses, adding or removing vehicles from your fleet, transferring old apportion plates from sold vehicles to new vehicles you purchase, increasing your truck's gross vehicle weights, updating the details on your cab cards, like names and addresses, reprinting your cab cards and IFTA licenses, ordering replacement plates and decals, making installment payments on your apportionable fees, and filing tax returns. Within Celtic, each transaction has its own tutorial page, which can be viewed by clicking on the question mark symbol. What you will find is a step-by-step guide to doing online motor carrier transactions. For further instructions on how to complete the most popular transactions, please visit our YouTube channel, SCDMV Communications. When taking care of motor carrier business with the DMV, there can be lots of paperwork to do, and we understand that this can be overwhelming. What you see here is a list of most of the forms and documentation that you might need when doing motor carrier transactions. It includes checklists for new accounts, renewal applications, change request forms, tax return forms, and more. In order to help make sense of all of these forms and how or when to use them, we will walk through some of the most popular transactions and explain what forms and documentation are needed for them. That said, please be aware that much less paperwork is required when completing these transactions online through the MCS trucking portal rather than doing them in person at a DMV branch office or mailing the forms to SCDMV headquarters. An IRP renewal updates the registration for your apportionable vehicles for the next year. The two ways you may renew your IRP account are mailing in the supporting documentation to SCDMV headquarters or submitting the application online through the trucking portal. Remember, submitting online through the trucking portal requires less paperwork on your end. For mail-in renewals, we will need a form called the IRP Schedule AE and a form called the IRP Schedule B. These provide us with some information about your account and the amount of miles you have driven during the most recent reporting period. For all renewals, whether done online or through the mail, we require proof of insurance documentation. If you have an operational lease agreement with another party in order to run under their US DOT number, then you will need to have a Form IRP-9 on file, which documents your arrangement with them. If your vehicle has a gross vehicle weight of over 55,000 pounds, which is 27.5 tons, then you will need to provide an IRS Form 2290. There are a few things that will be considered when verifying your insurance documentation, so it is good to be prepared to provide the correct kind of documentation. All proof of insurance documentation must include the insurance company name that insures your vehicles. The policy effective date and expiration date must be visible. The certificate must indicate commercial or automobile liability and the policy number. And the VIN or VINs of any vehicles insured must be listed. If they are not listed, there must be some indication that your entire fleet is insured or that any auto box must be checked. Without all of these things, your proof of insurance documentation cannot be accepted by the SCDMV. When renewing your IRP registration, every year, something to be aware of is what we call unrealistic distance. Whenever you enter the miles accrued in each state you travel in, you will receive an error message and not be allowed to continue without approval if one of the following things is true. If any state has the exact same number of miles as the year before. If more than one state's miles end with 2 zeros, for example, 500 miles exactly. If over 30% of the total miles reported are from low-fee jurisdictions, which include Alabama, Louisiana, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas. If more than half of the jurisdictions traveled to have mile figures that end in zeros or fives, when there are more than 5 jurisdictions present. If one single actual mile is reported in any jurisdiction, or if the same distance as average per vehicle distance is reported for the current and the previous year. Whenever unrealistic distance is detected by our computer system, you will be asked to provide a proof of distance summary. This summary must include your company's name, your MCS customer number, the VIN of the vehicle in question, the date range of the renewal reporting period, the total miles accrued for each individual jurisdiction, and the total miles for all jurisdictions. Once you provide this information, an MCS specialist will confirm that what you reported is accurate, and you will be able to proceed with the transaction. One of the most common transactions is adding and deleting vehicles to your account. Whenever adding or deleting vehicles, you will need a Form MC Schedule C, unless submitting the application online through the trucking portal. When submitting the application in person at a branch office or through the mail, the Schedule C must indicate what change you wish to make. For example, Section 5 of the form allows you to indicate whether you are adding a vehicle, deleting a vehicle, etc. You will enter information that will help us identify the vehicle, such as the plate number, VIN, year, make, model, etc. Whenever adding a vehicle, you will always need to provide proof of insurance so that the SCDMV can confirm that your vehicle is covered by your insurance policy. The same guidelines as outlined earlier apply to verifying the insurance. If you are considered a registrant, meaning that you operate under another party's USDOT number, then you will need to have a Form IRP-9 or Operational Lease Agreement on file to document the relationship you have with the carrier whose USDOT number you are using. A 2290 will be required for any vehicles with a gross vehicle weight of over 55,000 pounds. And if the vehicle is being borrowed with permission, you will need to provide a notarized vehicle permission letter on company letterhead to document the relationship between the owner of the vehicle and the user of the vehicle. If you need to replace your apportioned plate, forms and documentation required when mailing the application in or visiting a branch office in person include the MC Schedule C and proof of insurance. On the Schedule C, you will indicate that you wish to replace your license plate. The replacement plate will cost $6. If your cab card is lost, stolen, or damaged, you may acquire a replacement. For this, if requested in person at the DMV or through the mail, you will need an MC Schedule C, which should indicate that you wish to replace your cab card or registration. Each duplicate cab card costs $1. When filing IFTA tax returns every 3 months, the form required when filing through the mail is the IFTA 3. Please be aware that IFTA tax returns may only be filed by mailing the return to the SCDMV or by filing online through the trucking portal on the SCDMV's website. On the IFTA 3, you will enter the number of miles you traveled in for each jurisdiction, and you will also need to report the volume of fuel that you purchased throughout the previous 3-month period. If you did not operate during the quarter, you must still file your taxes. If that is the case, you should file a no operations return. The period of October 1st through December 31st is the window during which you may renew your IFTA license every year without a late penalty. On the Form IFTA 1, you will enter the current license year and provide information about the vehicle or vehicles on your fleet, such as the year, make, model VIN, plate number, and owner of the vehicle or vehicles. A cab card has all of this information and will suffice. Once you have your IFTA license, you may replace or reprint it at any time. For this, you will need a Form MC Schedule C to indicate that you wish to replace your IFTA license. Unlike replacement cab cards, IFTA licenses may be replaced for free. Should you add a new vehicle to your fleet and need a set of IFTA decals issued to you, you may request those decals with the Form IFTA-1. This form is typically used to renew IFTA licenses, but it may also be used to request additional decals. You will indicate that you wish to acquire additional IFTA decals, and you will provide some information about the vehicle or vehicles in question. A cab card will have all of the information required for this. IFTA decals that have already been issued and that are still valid may be replaced for free at any time. For this, you will need to submit an MC Schedule C and indicate that you wish to replace your IFTA decals. Remember, when requesting these services online through the trucking portal, much less paperwork is required than if you were to initiate these transactions in person at an SCDMV branch office or submit your application through the mail. Thank you for watching. For more information or other questions, please reach the SCDMV Motor Carrier Information Center at 803-896-3870